Welcome, Facebook, YouTube people. I'm not going to really dilly-dally that long in this portion here. We're going to go ahead and jump into the podcast because I have no idea how long it's going to be. Today's podcast is going to be a little bit of a story time. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Ready, set, go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Project Life. I always keep saying that. Every time I start saying project, I always start to say Project Life. Because I'm trying to say Project Life Mastery, which is not this podcast. It's actually another podcast that I listen to by a gentleman named Stefan Palernos. I've been listening to his podcast for ages. So if you guys are looking for some really good business / entrepreneurship / motivational type stuff, go listen to his podcast. Super awesome guy. His podcast called Project Life Mastery. But no, you are right now turned into Project Phoenix podcast, and I am your host, Kit Zakimi, and welcome to the show. This is episode 4. If you guys hear walking around upstairs, don't mind the noise. I film in the basement, and the creaking upstairs is just my mother-in-law walking around. Every so often you might hear the toilet flush in this episode. But if you've been with me since episode 1, y'all know the drill. So let me take a sip of my tea here. Okay, so before we start the podcast, I wanted to make a quick announcement. I recently created an email address for any of you guys to get a hold of me if you ever want to reach out to me. It is phoenixdareToRise@gmail.com, I believe. I will double check that, but look in the description of this podcast episode, or if you're on YouTube or Facebook, the description on the bottom for YouTube, description at the top if you're on Facebook. That email, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, if you're on this road to, finding yourself, self-awareness, personal growth, mental health, you guys need some advice, or just even need a friend. If you guys just even need a friend to talk to, feel free to email me, and I will do my best to email you back. I try to email everybody. So please don't hesitate to email me. That email will be in the description of this podcast. So look forward to hearing from you guys. So today is actually a very exciting podcast. We're going to be talking about humility, learning humility through vulnerability. But in order for me to tell this podcast, I was kind of going into a story time. And this story time takes place in Pai, Thailand, one of my favorite places on this planet Earth. I love Pai, Thailand. I got to visit it back in 2017. I think I went back in 2017. It was either 16 or 17 when I went backpacking through Asia for 8 months. We stopped by Japan, Thailand, Cambodia, and Malaysia. And let me tell you, out of all the places we went to, Japan is my home country, so I have kind of a bias there. But out of the other countries aside from Japan we went to, Thailand, specifically Pai, Thailand. I always say I left my heart in Pai, Thailand. I love that little town. It's a small town on the northern part of Thailand above Chiang Mai. And the only way you can get there is to get into Chiang Mai. Or the way we got there, and one of the most popular ways to get there is get to Chiang Mai, and then you'll take a bus through these winding paths for about, I would probably say about 2 or 3 hours, and it'll take you to this small town called Pai, which is close to the border of Myanmar or Burma, which was another place that my friends and I were thinking about going to, and unfortunately it didn't work out, and still to this day I kind of regret not going because we were just so close to Burma. We could have easily gone, but we ended up going on a 3-day impromptu meditation retreat instead. So, and that was really cool too. So I love Pai. But this story takes place in Pai. So But we're not gonna be talking about any time in Pai specifically, like the beginning and stuff. I'm actually telling a story about the last day I was in Pai. So the last day I was in Pai, Thailand, we were waiting at the bus stop for the bus to take us back to Chiang Mai. And this was the last day in Pai, Thailand, but it was also our last day in Thailand. Like, our visa was up the next day. This was the last day we could really get out of Thailand, and before we overextended our stay legally visa-wise. So we had to get to Chiang Mai and catch a plane and go to Cambodia, because that was our next stop. So we're waiting at the bus stop. Everything is going great. We got up at like the ass crack of dawn. We're sitting there waiting. And then all of a sudden, my stomach starts to gurgle. And I get the chills. And I stand up and I'm like, guys, I have to take a shit. And it's feeling intense. And my boyfriend's looking at me like, are you sure? This bus leaves in 30 minutes. And I'm just like, I have to go. This is not waiting. There's no waiting. And so, luckily enough, right across from the street of the bus stop, there was these restaurants, and in the back of these restaurants is a sketchy alleyway with a turnstile and a coin to turn that turnstile so you could go into the back where the bathrooms were. So I run there with my bag and I put the coin in, get through the turnstile, and I run into the woman's bathroom, and Thailand bathrooms are filthy, let me just tell you. Normally I would hover poop, but this time I didn't care. I had to go. I pulled down my pants and I sat down on this filthy toilet, and even then I could feel it, but I was like, I don't care. I have to go. The moment I sit down, my bowels just evacuated. Everything in my bowels. I was holding on to the stall walls for dear life. I was like, oh! It was so bad. For about a minute. It was one of the most intense sessions in the toilet I've ever had. It was like Montezuma's revenge. It was just all coming out of me mercilessly. Without mercy. Mercilessly? Is that the right word? Anyways. So, it takes a moment, but finally my whole stomach winds down, everything is good, and the moment it finishes, I'm good to go. I feel good. So, I reach over to grab toilet paper, and oh no, there is no toilet paper, which, to be fair, is quite common in Thailand, or actually pretty much everywhere I traveled except Japan and America. Toilet paper is a commodity when you're traveling, which is one of the reasons this specific episode that I'm talking to you about right now in Pai, Thailand, is the reason why I carry toilet paper with me all the time in my backpack when I travel, because of this. But I look around, there's no toilet paper, and I'm like, fuck. I mean, here I am in this sketchy bathroom, in this dirty bathroom in a sketchy alleyway behind this restaurant with my ankles, like my pants around my ankles. I have to catch a bus in now probably 15 minutes. I'm getting texts from my friends like, where are you? Are you okay? And I was just like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? My behind was so freaking dirty. Oh, hold on. Let me take a pause there. I need to take a pause. I don't know what to do, right? So I have no wipes. And in this moment, I guess my brain thought this would be a perfect time to have an epiphany. I remember sitting there thinking, I wish I was back in Japan, because in Japan, what I grew up with was we have toilets called bidets, and they're basically automatic toilet squirting toilet water. So let me explain. For those of you guys who don't know what a bidet is, it's a little attachment that they attach to a toilet, and there's these buttons on the side that you push, and it squirts water up your hoo-ha or your bum, and it helps clean it. So even if you don't have toilet paper, you have water that helps clean out the mess. Usually there's always toilet paper accompanied with the bidet, but, you know, I mean, it's better to wash peanut butter off an arm than to just wipe it, because it's still dirty, you know what I mean? Like, if you get poop on your arm and you wipe it, it's still dirty. It's good to have water. So that's kind of like the concept of a bidet. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, geez, only if I had a bidet. And then I felt so first worldy. I grew up very blessed and very fortunate to have that kind of modern convenience. And when I came back from traveling and seeing all these different countries, I realized how much we take for granted what we have, especially in a society like America and Japan, where we have these modern conveniences. You know, we have food, we have food that's probably way too abundant. We have the technology, we have comfort, even clean water. I remember in Thailand and Cambodia, we always had to carry a bottle of water with us. I believe I actually hear it's also the same in Mexico, but we can't drink out of the tap water. And so, you know, in the shower, when you turn the shower on and then you like open your mouth and you stand under the water and you're just like, ha, and then you just let the water flow. You can't do that in Thailand, because there's bacteria in the water that can give you stomach problems, and I forgot what the specific contaminants were, but it's not clean water. So even when you're brushing your teeth, you can't use faucet water. You actually have to use a water bottle, brush your teeth, and then use water from the water bottle to rinse your mouth and stuff. And I don't know, I was sitting there and I was like, wow, I never had to worry about any of this. Simple things like having a bidet or having toilet paper handy, or even just a clean toilet to sit on and use. And I thought that was insane. I mean, you know, Thailand and Cambodia weren't even that bad. I mean, it was bad, but it wasn't that bad when you consider there are other parts of the world that are worse. I mean, even just the border in Myanmar, I heard whew. You know, they're not as well off as even places Thailand and Cambodia, and then you compare Thailand and Cambodia to places like Japan and America and Canada, and I don't know, in that moment, that bathroom, I just had this epiphany about how much we take for granted what we have. You know, what we've come to expect as commonplace in these developed countries doesn't mean it's the same for the rest of the world. And I really believe that oftentimes we forget that. My first job when I came to the States, which was 10 years ago, was working at Home Depot. And on Black Fridays, we'd get pallets and pallets and pallets of poinsettias. I can't even tell you how crazy it is. I've never seen so many poinsettias in one place in my life. It was so many poinsettias, because Home Depot would run an ad for these 99-cent poinsettias. I don't know how much poinsettias are normally, but it's 99 cents must be a great markdown or a great discount for people to come and fight over these poinsettias. I mean, it's a madhouse for these poinsettias every year at Home Depot. And they run these ads, and in the ads, it always says, while supplies last. So we open pretty early at Home Depot on Black Friday, earlier than usual. And everybody, most people just run to the poinsettias and grab as much as they can. So at the end of the day, after the initial Black Friday rush, people come straggling in towards, the middle of the day or the end of the day, and they come in with their ads, their poinsettia ads, and they're like, "Where's the poinsettias?" And we have to tell them, well, we sold out of the poinsettias, because usually we sell out of these poinsettias in an hour. I mean, after an hour, good luck finding a 99-cent poinsettia. And people would get so upset. They would start yelling, they would start screaming, and then they're like, "Let me talk to a manager, this is ridiculous, you guys promised 99-cent poinsettias and you don't have it," and we have to keep telling him it's limited while supplies last. And they're like, "This happens every year, why don't you guys stock more poinsettias?" And you want to say, you don't realize how many pallets of poinsettias we have. We could fill this store with poinsettias and it would run out in an hour. Every year I just kept thinking to myself, is this really worth getting upset over? Every year. And then I was just, because while these customers are complaining and getting so frazzled about poinsettias, there are people out there in the world, some parents that are crying over their children in hospital beds. There are parents out there trying to figure out what they're going to feed their kids or get their kids something for Christmas when they can't afford anything. And there's a girl in Pai, Thailand with her pants around her ankles wishing she had toilet paper. I mean, there's like other people out there with so many bigger issues. Okay, the last one was a joke. I'm not saying that my problems were worse than the first two I mentioned. I'm just joking, I'm trying to throw a little humor in there, so don't come after me in those comment sections. But what I'm saying is, it's perspective. We can choose to get mad about these little things, or we can get in touch with the compassionate side of us and be like, okay, let's take a step back and just be grateful for what we have already, and not get so hung up on the little things. It's compassion to be able to realize that as you're suffering, so do other people. Maybe in worse situations. And it's gratitude from the heart to appreciate what you have and not take it for granted. And oftentimes you forget that, or we forget that. I'm not specifically saying you, I'm saying we, collectively, as people. We tend to forget that. When we get so accustomed to a certain way of life, we forget to stop and think and realize, hey, I might be okay, because there could be other people out in the world who have it worse than us. And I'm not saying that we're not allowed to feel struggle, that our feelings aren't valid, but it's about perspective. It's about being able to think, hey, if I'm struggling, there's other people struggling with me, or there might be somebody struggling worse. And just keep in mind and count your blessings. That's basically what I'm trying to say in this podcast. And that, that's one of the biggest things you learn when you're traveling. And I'm not saying traveling from one first world country to another, but being able to see how other people live in different cultures, because it's eye-opening. I mean, I remember when I was in Cambodia, we took a tuk-tuk. Our tuk-tuk driver, so awesome. If you guys are going to Cambodia and need a good tuk-tuk driver, reach out to me in the email, because I have a guy just for you. He's an awesome tuk-tuk driver, and he's great at showing you guys around. He's awesome. but he was driving us around, and he took us to one of these old temples in an ancient part of the city in Cambodia. And there was this group of people sitting on the lawn when we got to this temple, and they were just sitting there, and all of them were playing their instruments and singing, and they all had some kind of disability. Some had some of them were blind, some of them were missing limbs, and it turns out that they were landmine victims. Because in Cambodia, there's a lot of landmines left over from the war. That's why when you go to Cambodia, they recommend not going to the beaten paths off the beaten path in the woods or the foresty areas, because there are some active landmines still there. And so there were these guys and women, there were these people sitting there playing music and singing and laughing, and I don't know, it was just, and then off in the distance you could see kids who clearly looked dirty and, not necessarily well, like they were missing some nutrition, and they were playing out in the corner of one of the temples, and it was a moment where I remember, the temple was amazing. It was really cool to see the temple, but I remember seeing these people, and I was just like, wow, the things I take for granted. And so when something bad happens to me, or when I get frustrated, I think back on those experiences that I had in Thailand and Cambodia. I think back to those moments, whether it's me sitting on the toilet and not having any toilet paper, or seeing, these people without limbs and blind from the landmine accidents, or these kids playing in the temple, super dirty and very skinny, like their ribs hanging out, and you're just, and some of these people are the most kindest, most grateful people I've ever met. I got a chance to talk to a lot of these people, and their perspective of life. They have so little, but they're always wanting to give. And it was just crazy to come back to first world countries like Japan and America and realize, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this, but we complain about a lot of things when we have so much more than so many people out in the world. And I don't know, I think we have a tendency to take a lot of things for granted, and I know I keep saying that, but it was a perspective that I picked up when I was traveling. And that's one of the reasons why I always recommend people travel. Go see the world, see how other people live. It really humbles you. Take a tuk-tuk drive with my tuk-tuk guy in Cambodia, or, take a bus from Chiang Mai to Pai, and then go do what I didn't do and go to Myanmar. Because from a friend that I met in Pai, who I still talk to this day, he goes to Myanmar every so often to substitute or just volunteer teach in some of the orphanages out there, and he's always telling me stories like, oh my gosh, like, you will not believe how much they don't have, how little they have, and how wonderful they are. And I don't know, every time I think about those trips and I think about those people, it makes me want to cry. But it really does help humble a person, especially in those moments like I was in that bathroom. Humility, what a way to learn humility through vulnerability. My brand name underwear did end up taking one for the team. I came out a changed woman from that experience. A little vulnerable, a little ashamed, super dirty, but so grateful that I was able to grow up with so many amazing modern conveniences and just conveniences in general. And also, I'm really grateful that I decided to wear underwear that day, because if I didn't, that would have been, I might have had to use my shirt. I don't know. It was bad, guys. It was really bad. And when I say brand underwear, it was MeUndies. I don't know if you guys know MeUndies, but I'm not talking about like I lost my Gucci underwear. No, it was MeUndies, but it was one of my favorite pair of underwear. I don't know. I think about that story a lot, and I reference that story or just that experience a lot in my mind every time I get frustrated or I get angry, or I don't know. I think about that time a lot. I'm sorry, I burp in every podcast. You guys must think I'm a slob. But trust me, I don't burp this much except for when the camera's on and the mic's turned on. I don't know, this teas make me burp? I have no idea. I also had a lot of beans today. I made this refried beans with sweet potato and spinach and onions, and I ate it with tortilla chips, and it was really delicious, but maybe that's what's making me gassy. I don't know what my problem is on the other episodes, but today I can understand why I'm a little gassy. But yeah, I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. So write down below some of your stories of learning humility through some of the most vulnerable moments in your life. I would love to hear your stories. And also sound off below if you guys have ever been to Thailand. And tell me what you guys thought. I don't know. I love pie. I have to go back one of these days. That's definitely something that is on my list. Okay, guys, this is it for story time and this podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening to my story. Sorry it was a little gross. Hopefully you guys weren't eating when I told the story, but thanks for tuning in. If you guys feel like you got anything from this podcast, whether it's entertainment or value, please feel free to share, because that means a lot to me. If you're listening to this on podcast or YouTube, feel free to hit that subscribe button. If you're listening to this on YouTube and Facebook, make sure to hit that thumbs up button on the video so that I know that you guys liked it, and make sure to leave a comment below. And remember that no matter where you guys are in your journey in life, that you will always have an opportunity as long as your heart is beating, and as long as you rise up and dare to rise. As long as you dare to rise.